The expensive heels of Patricia Thompson, the manager of the luxurious Imperial Hotel, echoed aggressively across the Italian marble floor. "This Asian woman has been turning the front desk upside down for more than 40 minutes, she gesticulated, hysterical, to three professional translators who looked at each other, lost in desperation. In front of them, Isabella Yamazaki, a Japanese billionaire and CEO of a tech giant, remained motionless as a marble statue, with eyes that showed an explosive mixture of frustration and contempt. The scene, worthy of a diplomatic scandal, was unfolding under the gaze of curious onlookers and an assistant who was frantically typing on his cell phone, cancelling multi-million-dollar meetings. At the entrance to the lobby, Camilla Jones discreetly wiped the floor, observing every detail. At 32, and after 6 years as a cleaning woman at that hotel, she had perfected the art of being invisible. Her movements were silent. Her eyes passed by everyone, but no one saw her. The manager, Patricia, yelled orders. The translators shook their heads in defeat, and the tension deepened. What no one noticed, however, was the expression on Camilla's face. There was something in her eyes that indicated a deep understanding, as if in the middle of that room full of experts, she was the only one who understood what was really happening. The Japanese businesswoman finally spoke, a torrent of rapid words in her native language, gesticulating with a contained elegance. The translators looked at each other, completely lost. Patricia Thompson rolled her eyes with visible impatience, and it was then that Camilla stopped scrubbing the floor. Her movements, once silent and routine, became calculated and precise. She put down the cleaning cloth near the bucket and straightened up, like someone who, after years of silence, had finally decided that her moment to speak had arrived. What no one could imagine was that that cleaning woman was keeping a secret capable of turning that diplomatic crisis into a revolution. Do you think Camilla will stay silent or confront the manager? Tell us if something like this has ever happened to you. Camilla Jones's posture in the middle of that reception was one of dignity and weariness. For years, she had witnessed scenes like that, where the power and money of some gave them the right to humiliate others. The cleaning woman who seemed invisible actually possessed a brilliant mind and a heart that refused to be silent in the face of injustice. With a degree in linguistics and fluent in 5 languages, including Japanese, Camilla had hidden her talent on purpose. She had been unfairly fired from a previous job for defending a Latina colleague who was humiliated for not speaking English perfectly. The bitter experience had taught her that sometimes it was safer to be underestimated. The bitter irony of the situation, however, was that her vast cultural and linguistic knowledge, acquired over years as a volunteer, interpreter for humanitarian organizations, was the exact solution to the chaos that was settling in. She knew that the Japanese billionaire was not rude, but rather a woman frustrated by not being understood in her own language. Camilla had dedicated entire nights to studying Japanese culture and language, motivated by a genuine passion to help people facing barriers. With every arrogant word from Patricia Thompson, Camilla felt the familiar fire in her chest, the same that had driven her to defend her former colleague, and that led her to lose her job. The decision to intervene was not out of a desire to show off, but a silent conviction that had formed within her. It was time to turn years of injustice into a lesson for everyone. The sight of Isabella Yamazaki's unwavering dignity, in contrast to Patricia Thompson's vulgarity, rekindled the flame of her old passion and her sense of justice. She remembered what it was like to face prejudice and how the simple act of being heard could make all the difference. Camilla, who for years had feared exposure, had finally decided that invisibility was no longer an option. Patricia Thompson, completely out of control, gesticulated dramatically to the small crowd of curious onlookers that was forming in the lobby. Look at that. One of the most expensive suites in the hotel is occupied by someone who can't even ask for an extra towel. Her voice was high, shrill, and her speech was fueled by the arrogance of someone who had never faced the consequences of their own behavior. The concierge, Andrew Santos, whispered in embarrassment, trying in vain to get Patricia to lower her tone. But the manager was blinded by her own intolerance. Her eyes flashed with anger, and she couldn't stop repeating that the Japanese businesswoman shouldn't be staying in a first-class hotel. Camilla, for her part, felt the familiar fire in her chest, the same feeling she experienced every time she witnessed this type of arrogance disguised as professionalism. Her hands gripped the handle of the broom, remembering countless situations in which she had been treated like a piece of furniture by rich guests. Patricia's threat, now directed at Isabella, was veiled but brutal. Maybe we should call security. She looked at the billionaire as if she were an unwanted intruder. Isabella's dignity, however, remained unshakable. Her chin was slightly raised, a posture that contrasted brutally with the vulgarity of the situation. Isabella's assistant, finally losing his patience, began to speak quickly in Japanese, gesturing towards the exit. It was obvious that they were about to cancel the reservation, which would represent a huge financial loss and an international scandal for the hotel. Patricia Thompson, completely oblivious to the consequences, continued her display of intolerance, unaware that every arrogant word was being catalogued not only by Isabella, but by Camilla. The tension in the lobby reached its limit, and, for Camilla, the decision had been made. She had learned that sometimes true strength manifests itself at the exact moment when others expect our submission. As the tension in the lobby reached a critical point, something extraordinary began to shine in Camilla's eyes. It was not resignation or fear, but the silent determination that is born when someone finally decides that it is time to turn years of injustice into a lesson. Camilla had made her decision. She left the cleaning cloth on the cart and walked with firm steps towards the group. Her movements, previously calculated for invisibility, were now precise and full of intention. The air around her seemed to change. She was a shadow who had finally decided to materialize. "Excuse me," she said softly, addressing the Japanese businesswoman directly. Patricia Thompson, indignant, spun on her heels with her eyes flashing. "Excuse me, you are interrupting a critical situation. Go back to your duties immediately." But Camilla did not take her eyes off Isabella, and to the shock of everyone, in perfect Japanese, with a Kyoto accent that revealed years of deep study of the culture, she said, "Yamazaki-san, gomen nasai, kono hoteru anata ni fusawashiku nai desu yo." Those words, "Ms. Yamazaki, I'm sorry, this hotel is not worthy of you," echoed in a deafening silence, breaking the tension with the force of lightning. Isabella Yamazaki blinked several times, as if she couldn't process what she had just heard. Her expression changed from frustration to genuine relief, then to deep curiosity. The black cleaning woman, with her soft voice, had done in seconds what the professional translators couldn't do in hours. Patricia Thompson was paralyzed, her mouth open in total shock. "This is impossible," she stammered. "You can't. How can a cleaning woman?" Isabella, ignoring her with an elegant wave of her hand, addressed Camilla in Japanese, her astonishment visible. "Anata wa Nihongo ga jozu desu ka?" Do you speak Japanese, so? Well, it was the beginning of the turning point. Isabella's question to Camilla echoed through the lobby, a genuine curiosity in the eyes of someone who had finally found a soul capable of communicating with her. The billionaire's voice was full of awe and respect. Camilla smiled discreetly, replying with modesty, "Ai sukoshi dake hanasemasu." "Oh, I only speak a little." Although it was obvious to anyone with ears that Camilla's proficiency went far beyond the basics, her humility in her response contrasted brutally with Patricia's arrogance, who was having what could only be described as a live, nervous breakdown. "This can't be happening. You're a cleaning woman. You shouldn't even be talking to the guests," Patricia yelled, losing her professional composure. At that moment, Andrew Santos, the senior concierge, a man who understood the complexities of power in that environment, approached discreetly. He had observed the whole scene, and in his eyes there was a mixture of admiration and genuine concern for Camilla. "Miss Thompson," he intervened diplomatically, his calm voice cutting through Patricia's hysteria. "Maybe we should let the situation resolve itself naturally. Our guest seems to finally be getting the proper attention." Patricia's response was a complete affront. "Attention from a cleaning woman, Andrew. Are you seeing this? This person is creating an international scandal." But Isabella Yamazaki, who had understood every word in English, looked at Patricia with a cold expression that made the air around her seem colder. In English, clear and precise, with only a slight accent, she said, "The only person creating a scandal here is you, ma'am." The shock was instantaneous and devastating. Patricia Thompson stumbled as if she had taken a physical punch. "You speak English? The whole time? Fluently?" Patricia stammered, fear replacing the anger on her face. The penny was finally beginning to drop, and the scene was changing irreversibly. "Did this part of the story shock you? Type continue to see the billionaire's revenge," Isabella confirmed with a nod of her head, her voice laden with controlled disdain. "I perfectly understood every racist and xenophobic insult that came out of your mouth in the last 2 hours." The bomb exploded in the lobby. Guests who had witnessed the public humiliation began to whisper among themselves, their expressions gradually changing from embarrassment to silent indignation. Andrew Santos took a step forward, positioning himself discreetly beside Camilla, his look confirming his unconditional support. "Miss Jones," he said formally, using her last name for the first time in years, "I appreciate your help in this delicate situation." Camilla nodded respectfully, but there was something new in her eyes. No longer the resignation of someone accustomed to being invisible, but the silent determination of someone who had finally decided that it was time to be seen for who she really was. Patricia Thompson, realizing that she had completely lost control, desperately tried to regain her authority. "Camilla Jones, you are officially suspended. Leave your duties immediately." The threat echoed through the lobby, but this time it had no effect. Blinded by her arrogance and prejudice, Patricia could not see the real-time change that was happening in Camilla. The cleaning woman looked directly at the manager, not with fear, but with a quiet power, and replied with a calm that bordered on the supernatural. "I understand perfectly, Miss Thompson, but before I leave, I would like to make sure that our guest is treated with the respect she deserves." Isabella, with a precise touch on her cell phone screen, revealed the final blow. "I have already sent copies of this recording to the tourism boards of 4 countries, the national management of this hotel chain, and my public relations team in Tokyo." The air was sucked out of the lobby. Patricia began to tremble uncontrollably. Finally, understanding the magnitude of the catastrophe she had created, she was not dealing with an ordinary tourist, but with someone who had enough power to completely destroy the hotel's reputation with a single click. Justice had arrived from where no one expected it. This can't be legal," Patricia stammered, her voice dissolving into a desperate whisper. "You can't record conversations without consent." Andrew Santos, with his firmer professional voice, intervened. "In fact, Ms. Thompson, in public areas like the hotel lobby, there is no legal expectation of privacy. Furthermore, all our security cameras also recorded the complete incident." The penny dropped for Patricia like a devastating tsunami. Her words, her arrogance, and her campaign of humiliation had not only been recorded, but also filmed, creating irrefutable proof of her discriminatory conduct. Patricia's phone began to ring insistently. It was clearly her supervisor, probably already aware of the catastrophe. While Patricia desperately tried to justify herself on the phone, Isabella turned to Camilla. "Ms. Jones," she began, her voice full of genuine respect. While observing this situation, I took the liberty of researching your professional history. The shock on the faces of all the employees was instantaneous. The woman they had treated as invisible had a degree in linguistics, was fluent in 5 languages, and had worked as a volunteer interpreter. You are exactly the type of professional my company is looking for to expand our American operations, Isabella continued, and everyone present could see the new power dynamic forming. Patricia Thompson hung up the phone, her face completely pale. I've been fired, she announced to the empty lobby, her voice choked. Fired for just cause. I will never be able to work in the hotel industry again. While justice was being served, Isabella turned to Camilla with the proposal that would change her life. I would like to offer you a position as Coordinator of Intercultural Relations at our American branch, with an annual salary of $90,000 plus full benefits. The silence in the lobby was absolute. Camilla had gone from an invisible cleaning woman to an international executive in a matter of hours. 6 months later, Camilla Jones sat in her office on the executive floor of Yamazaki Tech Global, observing the spectacular view of the city that, one day, she had only known from the perspective of someone cleaning hallways. Her transformation had been complete and inspiring. As coordinator of intercultural relations, she had already implemented diversity programs in 12 partner companies and developed training protocols that had become a national model. Beside her, her assistant, Andrew Santos, who had left the Imperial Hotel to work with her, smiled with pride. The partnership between them had proven to be extraordinary. 2 people who understood the value of recognizing hidden talents. At that exact moment, on the other side of the city, Patricia Thompson sat in a small apartment looking for any job opportunity. Her dismissal and the exposure of her xenophobic comments had destroyed her career. No prestigious hotel would even consider her resume. Justice, for her, was not just the loss of her job, but the loss of her identity and reputation. Social media continued to remind her of her comments, making her a symbol of how arrogance can destroy a life. While the Imperial Hotel was going through a cultural revolution, with Isabella Yamazaki becoming an investor and ensuring that the changes were permanent, Patricia was living with the consequences of her intolerance. The most powerful lesson Camilla had learned and now shared in lectures was that the best response to prejudice is not bitterness, but unquestionable excellence. Patricia tried to make her invisible, but ended up creating the exact circumstances that allowed Camilla to shine with an intensity she would never have discovered under normal conditions. Her story became proof that in the end, true victory is not in destroying those who harm us, but in building something so extraordinary that it makes any attempt to diminish our greatness irrelevant. Sometimes, our biggest enemies do us a favor, without knowing it, of showing us our true strength. If this story inspired you, like the video, leave your comment telling us where you are watching us from, and subscribe to the channel for more narratives that inspire and move you.